We've already talked about how an element of design is a basic building block of a design, or a part of what makes up a design. In this video, we'll cover the three most foundational elements and look at a few examples. So what are those elements? Those elements are line, shape, and space. So the first element that we'll talk about is the ubiquitous line. Something as simple as a line can actually communicate quite a bit. Think about road signs, for example. Many of them consist of only lines. And when we look at these road signs, we see that while there are many different types of lines shown, not every kind is. A line can be straight or curved, thin or thick, expressive or controlled, delicate or bold. The type of line or lines used depends on the mood you want to convey. A horizontal line implies quiet or rest. Think a horizon or a person resting. Unlike a horizontal line, a vertical line evokes images of skyscrapers or people standing upright and tall. Vertical lines are stalwart and aspiring. They suggest much more potential for action. Because of this, vertical lines are much more energetic. Even more dynamic than vertical lines are diagonal lines. They are like bolts of lightning or people leaning forward, ready to burst forth into an explosion of movement. Of the straight lines, diagonal lines are the liveliest. Curved lines also create movement and motion, but they do so in a different way. As we can see, lines are quite expressive. We must note, however, that not all lines are actual lines. That is, not all lines actually exist. Some lines are implied. Think of those connect the dots activities you did as a child. Depending on the difficulty of the page, you could sometimes determine the image. Another implied line is called a psychic line. These lines are basically imaginary lines. An example of this is when someone looks or points. There could be a line connecting the two objects, but there isn't. It's a line created by your mind. Now we'll move from lines to a second element of design, shape. A shape is what we call two-dimensional. It has width and height, but it has no depth or volume as a three-dimensional object does. A shape can be rectilinear, which is having straight edges and angular corners, or curvilinear, with curved edges and rounded corners. Geometric shapes are standard shapes such as circles, squares, and triangles. These shapes generally have mathematical formulas to determine the size. They are very precise with straight edges and consistent curves. Not all shapes are geometric shapes, though. Shapes such as palm fronds, because I live in Florida, tree branches, or flower petals are natural or organic shapes. They are not as precise or consistent as geometric shapes. A different kind of shape that has been simplified or changed to reflect the essence of a natural shape is called an abstract or stylized shape. One category beyond geometric, natural, abstract, and stylized shapes is those shapes that are called non-objective or non-representational. These are the shapes that are created with no reference to any subject, but only those we imagine. A third element of design that many consider a principle is space. I consider it an element because space, or how you use space, is one of the essential building blocks of any piece of art. Positive space is the actual existence of an object or shape and how it positioned relative to various other objects. Negative space is the space around the positive space. Sometimes, negative space is used to create its own shape, like the FedEx logo. As we learn more about design and how to improve art, we see that we need to first understand what it is that design consists of. Today, we covered three of the foundational elements of any piece of art: line, shape, and space. And we've seen some examples of what they are and how they're used. What's the most dramatic or effective example of negative space that you've seen? Let me know in the comments. If you want to try these design tips in your own designs, but need to know how to use the right software, check out the link to my course, Learn Affinity Publisher, below. For more tips and tricks, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and stay creative.